Welcome to the information session today. It's titled the RFSI Reimbursement Process. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. So welcome everybody. I would like us to go around and just introduce ourselves, our name, and the organization that we're from. My name is Jody Walder. I'm the RFSI Program Coordinator. Some of you know me from the Farm to Market program because I've worked with you with invoices and such from there. With me today is Brian Copham.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Copham, the program manager for RFSI and the person who wishes I could tell you your contracts are ready, but I know we're very, very close. And Jody, do you want to call people
Yeah,
people?
I'll just call them out. Monty, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure, Monty Torres with Centennial Ag Trading, and we're a grain handling facility in Northeast Colorado, and wanting to punch the ticket tonight, make sure I know exactly what we need to do as far as next steps.
Sounds good, Monty. Rita?
Sure, I'm Rita Henley. I'm the controller at Grouse Malt House. We produce gluten-free malt as well as hoping to break into the baking sector more fully. I'm basically the support person for Twyla Souls, our founder, who is approaching maternity leave. So I'm going to be assisting her with just the details of processing the grant.
Thanks, Rita. Stacy?
Hi, I'm Stacy Lishka. I'm the executive director of Poudre Valley Community Farms. We're a nonprofit that supports land access for farmers and ranchers in northern Colorado. And yeah, likewise, just trying to figure out how to make sure we don't mess anything up.
Well, hopefully this information session will give you some more confidence in the reimbursement process. Thanks. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Matt Springer with Grail Garden here in Western Colorado. Culinary herb cultivation, processing, and aggregation, helping other farmers get into the herb market. Ready to take some notes.
Thanks, Matt. Eric?
Yeah, I'm Eric Westison. I work for David and John Harold at Tuxedo Corn over in Olathe, Colorado.
Thank you. All right. So let's discuss the reimbursement process. But first, the purpose of this information session is to understand what documentation is needed when combining and all your invoices to get ready for submission. So after you've attended this meeting, you'll be able to avoid common pitfalls in the reimbursement process, and hopefully, and I can almost assuredly say that you will be reimbursed quicker. So you should know that the state is reimbursement only. And what does that mean? It means that you will have to spend your money first, and then the state will reimburse you for your approved budget items. Why is this? Because the state needs to ensure that they are being good stewards, good stewards of public funds. And it also protects the state and you as the grantee and with the possibility of an audit. And they always say, not if, but when. So we keep good documentation and everything is in line in case that would happen. So let's start talking about the process. The first thing I want you to do when you are thinking about submitting your invoices and documentation for reimbursement is to review your statement of work. And the reason why you want to do this is because within your statement of work, you will have a couple tables. You will have your activity table and your budget table. And your budget table is the most important one that you're going to look at for reimbursement, because you're going to want to make sure that the equipment or items that you are purchasing will be reimbursable. And you will know that by seeing that the item is listed on your budget table. Another important item to check is the dates. You want to make sure that your purchases fall within your grant agreement dates. Anything outside of those times are not reimbursable except for the 90-day pre-award policy. All right. So now that you've checked your statement of work and everything's in line, the budget, it's on the budget table, it's within the agreement dates, you are ready to start collecting your documentation. So when I look at documentation, I think of 3 required types of documentation. The first one is a proof of purchase, which is an official invoice or receipt from the seller or merchant. And you will need one of these for each of the transactions or each of the items that you are requesting reimbursement for. You will also need a proof of payment, such as a bank or credit card statement or a cleared check for each transaction, for each purchase. And you will need to create an invoice for the CDA, requesting reimbursement. So I saw that we had a question, and I think let's go ahead and just, let me grab that really quick. Brian, do you see the question?
Yeah, the question is, can we explain the 90-day policy? And I'm sorry, are we talking about the 90-day
The award, yeah, the pre-award.
pre-award policy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Monty, so the 90 days is an allowance that the AMS is making for this grant. I believe we are going to specifically need to request a contract amendment to allow that. If your contract date, the effective date of your contract is, let's say, September 15th, then purchases made that are on the approved budget table, purchases that are made up to 90 days before September 15th will be allowable for reimbursement. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Thanks for going over that for me,
You
Brett.
bet.
Could I just clarify, Brian, did you say that we need a special, I guess there needs to be something special in our contract to allow that? Like, do you need to know now that, hey, we're going to need that?
Rita, it's a new process for us, so I believe, based on what we read yesterday, that CDA will have to get approval from AMS for a contract amendment. And so in order to do that, when I send out at some point soon, hopefully next week, we will send out budget tables and activity tables for the statement of work. So you can look at those and make sure everything is as thought. Those tables will be pre-populated with the information from your application. And at that time, I think it's likely that we will ask whether any of those items have already been purchased within that 90-day window.
Okay, great. Great. So we'll be able to itemize that because obviously we've started moving because we have such long lead times on certain things that.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. If you can share with us what will fall within that, then we can work
so
with
it'll
the
be
AMS to
it'll
make
be on a
sure.
line item basis that I'll need to identify those. A line item of the budget table.
Yes, you'll want to.
Okay.
You want to identify by the line item.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so, any other questions? Okay, good. So we were talking about the 3 required types of documentation. So proof of purchase for each item that you buy, proof of payment for each item that you buy, and then 1 invoice to the CDA requesting reimbursement for those. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about something we like to call the matching principle. And if you can follow the matching principle, you will be reimbursed much quicker because there will be less back and forth between me and you getting the right documentation. So what the matching principle does is provides a chain of evidence that a purchase was made and paid for. So between the documents, there's going to be, I want to say, identical information that we can say, oh, that matches, that matches, that matches, and then we can kind of push the invoice through for approval. So those items are names and addresses, so they must match on all the documents. Amounts should match, and also the dates should be the same date or shortly after, with one caveat of the invoice to the CDA. It can have a little bit longer of a time span because if you invoice us every month, there'll be a month between the dates. So I want to kind of show you an example of what I'm talking about here. Okay. The matching principle for names and addresses. When you registered as a vendor with the state, you gave them W-9 information, which included your business name and your business address. So that's what's in the state accounting system, and that's what I'm going to compare your documentation against. So Good Farm is what I expect to see on all of the documentation that comes into me. If it says something like Bob's Good Farm, I'm going to have to reach back out to you and ask you either to provide an explanation or to revise an invoice to match that, because accounting generally won't approve that sort of difference. So the first invoice that you see is the farm equipment supply. And you notice that it has John Doe Good Farm on it with the address. And that address actually matches the one on the bank statement. And those both match the address on the invoice to the CDA, which is the invoice to the far right. So those all match and create a link, and it shows me, oh, that was paid, and they're asking for reimbursement. The next matching principle is the date. So as you can see on the farm supply, the date is August 28th. So I'm looking for something around that date or that exact date. So if I look at the bank statement, I see, oh, it's August 28th. So yes, except that says 2023. I'm sorry about that. I'll change that before I send out the slide deck. And then I'll go back over here, and it looks like you guys invoiced me on the same day. So that all looks good to me, and that means I can move forward with my next check of the matching principle, which is the amount. So I look at the first invoice and I look at the total due, and then I'm comparing that again to your bank statement, and then again to what you're requesting. There shouldn't be too much difference between the invoices and the bank statement. One example that I can think where there would be a difference is if you bought a piece of equipment and it actually exceeded how much money is left on your grant. So that might be a difference there, but you would document that in your invoice to the CDA. You would say something like less $1,500 grant overage. Right. Any questions so far? Good.
I actually put my question in the
Okay.
chat regarding
Oh,
deposits. Basically, for the majority of the equipment that we're purchasing, there's deposits required. So the deposit is required upon order, and
okay.
so that payment comes out, obviously, right? And then after delivery of the product, the balance is invoiced and we pay the balance. So how would that, I guess, how does that play out? Can I go ahead and submit for payment from the CDA of the deposit amount, even though the product hasn't arrived, or even though the equipment hasn't arrived on site yet?
Rita, we're following up with the AMS on that specific point. I believe that the AMS will not reimburse deposits until the item has been delivered, but we may have some leeway on that. So if you can hold that question, we'll send a communication to the entire group on those in specific, because I know it's a relatively common feature of buying large pieces of
Sure.
equipment.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
And a question for me, just briefly, with the dates, make sure that proof of purchase, proof of payment are as close together as possible. You said maybe a little longer for the CDA. Is that specifically like within the month, as soon as possible? Just a little more detail on that.
Yeah, I think like when you're ready to invoice, we recommend that you invoice monthly if you have expenses, but yeah, so if it's like a month or even 2 months away from the farm, like the seller invoice and the bank statement, as long as it's trackable for me, it should be okay. I'm not really gonna say, oh, this is way too far out for us to pay, because it's obviously reliable. So that shouldn't be a problem, Matt.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Matt, it's these controls are really intended to be common sense kind of based. So, not everything's the same, right? Sometimes you don't pay for something until 60 days after, in Jody's example. And as long as it's common sense and reasonable, it'll be okay. If it's like 2 years later, we paid for that,
Okay.
that might raise some eyebrows, like who gave you 48-month terms or 24-month terms kind of thing. But most importantly, in the past, we have at times received documentation where the proof of payment was earlier than the invoice.
Yeah.
And there's no common sense scenario under which that typically works. So that'll almost always be thrown back. So date of invoice followed by the payment is typically what we will be looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, can I ask Brian, thanks for your answering my question in the chat. I had a question about salary. I'm not sure if it applies to anybody else, so I guess I wanted to just ask a follow-up quickly about the proof of payment piece for salary. We have a payroll company that they basically, what our bank account shows is a deduction as for all of the salary for all of our employees at once. And this project would be only a piece of their salary, and it would be only a piece of one person's salary. So I'm wondering how we would handle the proof of payment part for that, because they wouldn't have a separate line item payment for just the RFSI component of their salary for one individual. Oh, Brian, you're on mute.
Thank you. Starting with the easiest part of that question, we don't expect that 100% of the payroll is going to RFSI. Okay. So from the state standpoint, if you're saying that your employee Jim spent X amount of hours, 10 hours at $50 an hour, and that's $500. That's good. Where the state is taking your attestation to that effect, and that there is some kind of financial transfer between your organization and Jim indicates that it's a real transaction. You didn't just make up Jim and say, okay, we paid Jim and you're pocketing the money, which we know you wouldn't do, but that's the way the state kind of thinks. So we may, in your case where you're using a payroll company, I think what we can do is just talk and see what documentation the payroll company can provide demonstrating that Jim was in fact paid.
Okay.
And I don't think it'll be too difficult. It'll probably be common sense, but we'll just have to dig into it a little bit.
Okay. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Could you also clarify? I mean, obviously, we don't have the contract yet, but I know in reviewing the grant, back when Twyla submitted that, there was a breakdown between what our match was going to be and those things that would be under the match versus what the CDA grant funds would cover. So when it comes to this documentation, are we dealing with both? We just wouldn't get reimbursed for the part that is our matching, that we have to document that side? How does that work?
Here is my answer, which I believe will be accurate. So first thing is that for any kind of match documentation, it is important that every grantee maintain records of all money spent on match, the same documentation. We're not going to ask for that documentation, but you need to have it available in the event that there's an audit. So that's
So
the most,
basically the same process we would do internally, right?
yes.
To validate and to support all our matching funds.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's, I think the AMSs, the federal government tends to say, we keep your records in case you're audited, because you may be audited. So that's kind of the stick that they use, but we're not going to ask for the matching documentation. However, if you do buy, say, a single piece of equipment and you're asking for 50% of it is on your statement of work as funds requested, so you're asking for reimbursement, you can then clarify just with a note or something on the invoice or the proof of payment if the proof of payment also includes your match portion. So the only reason you would do that is just simply if it makes it easier for us to understand why, if you bought a $100,000 piece of equipment, you're only asking for $50,000. We'll know from the statement of work, but generally it won't be an issue. Just make sure you're keeping the documentation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, let's jump back in. I'm going to go over each one of the 3 types of documents that I have been talking about. And I know it's sort of basic, but really I have to reach out to grantees all the time about just missing some small things. So just double checking your documents for these items that I've listed up here will really help in expediting your reimbursement. So the first document we're going to look at is the seller proof of purchase or an invoice. So of course, we're going to want to see the name of the seller on there and their address. We're also going to want to see the word invoice. And the reason why I put this here is because a lot of times I'll get maybe like a screenshot of like an order that hasn't been processed. And it really has to be official documentation. So that would be like an invoice, a receipt from a merchant, or like if you ordered something from Amazon, which I don't know with this, with the equipment being so large and stuff, I think we'll mostly have invoices, but an order confirmation. So that's official. So that's, I'm looking for that. You also want to see that it's going to your organization. So your number 4 here is, I think I missed 3, but we'll talk about 4. We want to make sure that it's going to your organization. And we'll also want the date. It's one of the matching principles. And we'll want number 5, all the items to be itemized, and 6, the total due. The next piece of information would be the proof of payment. So this is what's coming from your bank. And I think this is the item that I have to request the most, because a lot of times there's screenshots and they don't contain enough information. So it's best to send a statement if you can. And I know there's always the worry about financial information and seeing too much of it. Please feel free to redact any information that you don't want Brian or I to see, just as long as we can see that the information about the purchase and the identifying information that I'm going to go over. We really want to see, 1, the bank name, 2, your organization name or your name, who the grant is under. It's good to see the organization name mostly though. We will want to see a 4-digit account number. And we will want to see the date. Number 4, number 5, the seller name, and number 6, the amount that cleared the account. Lastly, when you invoice the CDA, it's basically the same information. We want to see that it's an invoice, that it has a date, a unique invoice number. A lot of times I have to reach out to grantees because they may pull up an invoice and just edit it, because it's, it's easy just to pull that up and say, oh, I'm buying, a bubble washer this time, but they don't change the invoice number. So I have to ask them to change that. You're going to want to make sure your address and business organization name is on there, and you're going to invoice to the CDA. Okay, number 5, you're going to want to itemize your purchases. So if you had a couple different sellers, you could itemize them all on one invoice, and that would be fine. And then you're going to want the subtotal, or not the subtotal, I'm sorry, the total for your purchases. Yeah, Brian.
Jody, if I may just add a point.
Sure.
One thing I have found helpful is understanding why with a grant you're having to provide, for instance, an invoice. Why are you registering as a vendor with the state? And what's helpful to know is that the state can only really pay vendors. It doesn't have a category for, say, grantees in its accounting system. So the way the state looks at it is providing money in exchange for some benefit. In this case, it is a collective community benefit that includes you. So stronger food system, that kind of thing, which is why you are submitting an invoice to the state instead of some other document for reimbursement, because the state is going to input your valid invoice into the system, which will allow it to initiate payment. It's a little bit strange, because I think sometimes as grantees, we're used to thinking of like, oh, we're not a vendor. We're not selling something to the state. But really, from a functional standpoint, the state considers that you are selling something. Your contract is performance-based. You are delivering the performance on that contract in exchange for payments. And that is it, Jody.
Thank you. That's really good. I was thinking about that kind of when we're talking a vendor equals grantee in our instance right here. All right. Now let's look at, so you've checked all your documentation. You are ready to assemble your invoice packet. So Brian and I will provide you with a link in the near future where you will be able to upload your invoice packet. But we ask that you assemble it in a way that is most efficient for checking all the information and getting it through quickly. So how it's going to be put together is you're going to put the invoice to the CDA on top, or the first document, and then you're going to do proof of purchase proof of payment. And if you have more than one transaction that you would like reimbursement for, you're going to put the second proof of purchase and the second proof of payment. It makes it easier to identify, just to check and make sure everything is in line with the matching principle and the invoice and the bank statement. It saves time and it will get your invoice through quicker. So I want to take a second to show you where you'll be submitting your invoice packets. We don't have our RFSI form set up yet, so we're going to use the farm to market one. I'm going to just, let's see if I can try. Having a little bit of technical issues today, and I can see that I am now. So let me try something here. All right.
Jody, I can try to pull it up as well if it's being
Yeah,
belligerent on your end.
if you want to do that real quick, Brian, because I don't have it and I don't want to mess up my screens right now. That would be great.
Let me just log in real quick. Okay, where are we? Here we go. Oh, come on. Okay, let's see if I can share successfully. Share screens, documents. I'm wondering if it's did you get a message with like desktop has all of these have exclamation marks for share? No. Let me try again. Share. One participant can share at a time.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
Am I sharing still?
you might be, or at least
Okay.
it might think that you are.
I'm going to not share. Are you seeing my presentation?
No, I'm
Okay.
not. Yeah. And it's just, I apologize. It's just having a conniption, which is odd because we don't normally have this.
Let me try again, Brian, really quick.
Okay.
Let me see.
Oh, here we go. So
All right.
that's sharing.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm glad I could.
Sweet.
All right. So we'll give you a link to access.gov and it'll be specifically for the RFSI program. So looking over this, I really like this. Would you call it a form, Brian? It's a form. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like it because it gives you a lot of information up front. So everything that we've talked about in this presentation today, such as documentation types, invoices, proof of purchase, proof of payments, invoice organization, it's all here. Easy, accessible to get your packet ready for submission. It also gives you some good tips such as number of transactions. I'll be going over some of these in my next slide, but you'll read through that, and then it'll ask you, in this case, it says farm to market, but they'll ask you if you're a RFSI grantee, and you'll say yes. And then it'll ask you if you've reviewed your statement of work, and you have. You'll say yes, and you're ready to upload your invoice package. So it's just a simple form that you would fill out. I'm going to run through it really quick. You will have a unique number that you put in here for your agreement or your encumbrance. Some of you will be receiving POGG1s, which are purchase order grant given. And some of you will be receiving CTGG1s, which is contract grant given. Is that correct, Brian? Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to put in a number here. Just do a comma. Okay. My name, last name, email address, building difference, phone number, address, 05, Interlochen. Colorado. Okay. How much you're going to be asking reimbursement for, we'll just say. Okay. And then here is where you're going to submit your package, where it says upload your invoice package here. So you can just choose a file. I am going to go to my desktop. Yep. Select the file you want, say open. It's going to attach it for you. You can leave any kind of information here that you would like Brian or I to know. And then you will submit. You will confirm. Oh, it's not ready. What did I miss? My grant oh, it's probably this up here. I don't think I have enough numbers.
Jody, you put the address on line 2 instead of line 1.
Oh, okay. Yep. That might have been it.
And you can see the error down below that says address line 1 is required. So if you're as grantees filling this out, it should be pretty directional in terms of potential issues.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
You bet.
Where you just uploaded that file, that was a singular file, should would you would I assume prefer the that packet, the invoice to CDA, the proof of purchase, the proof of payment, all be compiled into like a singular PDF file?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, Matt, that's definitely the best because if we get it piecemeal, we may lose pieces.
Mhm.
So just to ensure that we get all the information.
Yeah. And then you'll see that your submission was successful. And then it also says here, please note the state statute allows 45 days from the submission of an approved invoice to pay the invoice. It usually does not take that long. And also notice the word approved here. So every time we're back and forward with requesting more information or more documentation, that 45-day restarts. But genuinely, we don't have, it doesn't take that long to get reimbursed. Okay. Other than that, I'm going to go back to my slideshow here. And let's look at some tips to round one. Look at some tips on streamlining the reimbursement process. All right. Do you see that one, Brian? Looks
I
good.
do.
Okay, great. So tips for streamlining the reimbursement process is we want to see traceable transactions. So cash is not traceable. And there's been a few instances where we have not been able to reimburse a grantee because they've paid with cash. So as best as you can, or make sure that you are using a check, bank card, bank statement, even a wire transfer is good. Which brings me to the next bullet point here is wire transfers. A lot of times when I'm looking at documentation for wire transfers, I notice that they can be kind of ambiguous. So please, anything that you can do to cover those required pieces of information, I will be able to get your invoice through a lot quicker. A lot of times I'll just see wire transfer $1,500, but I really need to know where did it go? It usually has the date, but where did it go? I need to know who it went to. So that's the important note on that one. It's always good to purchase your grant items separately. So if you are going to maybe make some smaller purchases and you go to Walmart, for example, and you decide that you would also like to buy, dinner makings for the night. You don't want to have those two. You don't want to have those two together. It's just, it's hard to separate them apart. So try to do separate transactions. If you send a screenshot, which is totally okay, just make sure all of the required information is on there. Submit a few large purchases at a time. Instead of small purchases, the small purchases are a little harder to trace, especially if there's a bunch of them. I've received invoices that had, like 35 items on it. So a few big purchases is always a lot better, and I can get it through to accounting pretty quick. Would you provide a bank statement? It's always great to highlight the transactions because I can easily find them on there. Makes it more efficient. Related entities are not allowed. And Brian, would you be able to describe this one a little bit better? I think you explained it to me really well.
Yeah, sometimes we have organizations that have sister companies. So for Poudre Valley Community Farms, if Stacy, you had another organization that was Poudre Valley Community Dry Cleaning, and you submit an invoice from Poudre Valley Community Dry Clean. God, I really picked a bad example, but an invoice from that related entity for reimbursement, we would be unable to accept it because you're essentially, as somebody that's involved in both organizations, you are billing yourself and asking for reimbursement. So it's just an area that can be really fraught with fraud. So if you have related entities and they're providing a service, let's talk and make sure that can be reimbursed.
Thanks, Brian. And the last tip that I can give you is if you open a a bank account or have a bank account that's just for the grant. Sometimes it's hard when there's multiple things coming out of the same bank account, but it's still doable, but it's efficient to track that way. So, yes, Brian.
Thank you, Jody. And just to put a finer point on that, the reason that this becomes a question when we say use grantee's bank account is particularly with smaller organizations, which doesn't really apply to anybody on this call because you all have professional professional organizations. You're used to doing accounting and bookkeeping and tracking. But sometimes we get people who they purchase something on their personal card. And then we're seeing their personal bank statement as proof of purchase, which does not follow the matching principle because they personally are not the grantee, it's the organization. Or they have their employee pay for something and want that reimbursed. And then we have to go down this rabbit hole. So we just counsel people to, whenever possible, have the transaction occur within the organization's bank account.
Yes. All right. That
One-
is. Oh, go ahead.
One more question. This is silly and simple, I'm sure. I just
No.
might as well while we're on it now. Submit a few large purchases
Mhm.
at a time. So if I've made, a bunch of, that's just submit fewer invoice packets. And within those invoice packets, I could include, like if I have, a dozen small items, just make sure that's in a singular invoice. Okay. Rather than.
Yes.
So, yeah, Matt, one thing we have found is that, again, with smaller projects, I don't anticipate it to be the case here, but you buy equipment when you need it, you buy supplies when you need them, whatever it is. But we have had some invoice packages that are over 100 pages long.
Mhm.
And something that contributes to that is they went to Ace Hardware and bought 4 screws on this day. That needs to have a proof of payment and the proof of purchase. And then later that day, they went and bought, 2 washers. And these lists get so long. It's like just buy the washers and the screws at the same time, and you will cut your documentation in half. And what happens on our end is we'll get the documentation. We have to go through every line item, everything that's submitted to match the proof of purchase with the proof of payment and make sure it's all good. So if we have to do that 100 times, that's going to be sitting with us a long time. If we have 5 transactions that we have to verify, that's going to be pretty quick. So if you have a lot of little stuff you're buying, to the extent possible, just try to buy it all at the same time under one transaction or just a few transactions.
Yeah.
Great. Thank
I
you.
apologize if I didn't explain that correctly. Okay. So
I can
that
ask
is.
a real quick question, Jody. I know during the last webinar, you referred to the fact that we would at some point set up an EFT reimbursement. We would need that. Is that going to be, is that through the vendor self-service, or will you be letting us know when we give you that?
I plan on sending out a form and having you fill it out and send it back to me, and then I'll get it to accounting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And that's coming soon. I'm working on that right now.
Great. Thanks.
That's the
Any
end
other
of my
questions?
presentation. Go ahead. Any questions?
And just to put a final point on it from me, it really is a pretty straightforward, common sense process. And the benefit of knowing it up front is that you can keep your receipts and make sure you save your invoices and put them in a place where you can find them when it comes time for reimbursement. Tell your employees that if we're purchasing RFSI project items, maybe they want to take the company credit card or however you work that. Everything you can do up front to make it simple. will dramatically increase or shorten rather the time to get reimbursed. And we know that there's a lot of questions about executive orders that have been put in place related to grants and what does that mean. Every indication we have from the AMS and the USDA is that they want to make sure everybody can take full advantage of the grants that you've been awarded.
Mhm.
And one of the things that will benefit you is invoice us frequently with a small number of transactions. So when you pay for something, if you think about like, the end of the week or end of 2 weeks, put together an invoice and send it to us with your documentation so we can get that in process. You can have multiple invoices in the pipeline, and that'll just make sure that the money's getting back to you as quickly as possible. So you're taking, you don't feel like you're taking a lot of risk. And with that, I will turn it back over to Jody.
I think we're just open for questions now, if there's any additional questions anybody has.
I have one question, and it's sort of related to the invoicing, but maybe the bigger picture as well. Do you have any information about if the end date of the grants will be extended, given this particularly long process leading up to these contracts, or will they still need to be completed by I think it was in early 2027?
Stacy, they will not be extending deadlines. We know that with certainty because of the situation with the federal government. My sense is that the USDA and AMS is just really pleased that this program is able to continue and wants to get this money spent as quickly as possible. We're working with procurement on this. I think we're going to be asked to make sure that all grantees spend their money, not finish the project, spend the money by the end of next year. So,
2026.
yep, December 2026. So, you can, if to the extent that everybody can incur expenses in that period, then the AMS will be very, very pleased. And so we'll send out an email with further instructions. But if there are really long lead times on equipment or anything like that, we can be aware of to make sure that they are included, we'll have that discussion with you.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
I had a real quick question. Jody, I know it took a bit for the presentation to be converted to send out. Would you be able to go ahead and just send out the slide deck? I think
Sure.
some of those snapshots would be very helpful as I lay out the basic. I'm kind of organizing an accounting system to be able to where I'm going to store everything, et cetera. So if I have all those details just on the slide deck, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure, I could do that.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then Brian, you suggested that we should be watching for the contract like within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So what we'll do, Rita, is first we will send out the budget tables and the budget tables and the activity tables for the statement of work. Those are really the critical items that are going to drive your allowable purchases. So we'll ask you to review those and make sure that those are in fact consistent with what you applied for and flag anything that has changed in the meantime. So we can address that up front. And then as soon as procurement approves our statement of work template, which I was hoping we would get before the end of day tomorrow, it looks like maybe it'll be early next week. We will also send that out so you've got all of that language to be able to review. what we really want to do is make sure that everybody, as soon as we get the thumbs up from AMS, that we can simply update your contract. What's the term, Jody? The start date, the contract effective date,
Yeah.
and then send those over to you and have them ready.
Okay, great. And when we get those tables, that's when we have the opportunity to kind of refine, or I guess broaden the language in case there was any
Yes.
specific like equipment vendor or anything like that in that detail. That's when we have an opportunity to kind of shore that
Yes.
up, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
great.
So rather than indicating the manufacturer and potentially the model number, giving it a more generalized description. So if that manufacturer doesn't have it, you can go with a different manufacturer and not have to ask for an amendment to your table. That'll be the time to do it for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Well, Jody, you want to close us up? I think we're at time.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Brian or I, and hopefully we'll get these contracts to you soon. So we will.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Jody, do you want to stop the recording?
Yes, I'm just looking for it. I am